Hey, if people have to choose between freedom and sandwiches, they'll take sandwiches. Be quiet, Bonnie. Welcome to Goose Pond Hideout. And I'm Rob. So what am I meaning? What am I talking about here? I stumbled across the saying yesterday by, I think his name was John Boyd Orr. So forgive me if I got his name wrong there. But if people have a choice between freedom and sandwiches, they'll take sandwiches. And given everything that's going on in the world right now, that really makes a lot of sense to me. And another saying that pops into my mind that's along the same lines of that is, maybe you've heard it before, the gentle government holds your hand as you cross the street, but then refuses to let go when you get to the other side. And with the shutdown that's going on, it really comes to light, and you really see the truth in all of that, because all these programs that are, hopefully temporarily shut down, it's really hurting a lot of people. Because, like, the one that of course comes to mind the most is the food stamp program, which is called SNAP now, Supplemental Nutrition something program there, assistance program, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. And states, communities, churches and that, we all want to help people. We all want to, when somebody's really in big trouble, having a hard time, I don't want to see people starving and things like that. But when the federal government gets involved, they really screw things up. And the fact that today, 1 in 8 people, think about that, 1 in 8 people are on SNAP. Roughly 41 million people, give or take. To me, that's just, something's not right if that many people are on the program. And now they're going to be, until the shutdown ends, they're going to be cut off. And so that's the government holding your hand while you cross the street and then refusing to let go. But then, unfortunately, when they do let go, when the program ends, you're in big trouble because you've become dependent on that. And that was my original saying about the freedom in sandwiches, is it's that same thing. The government whittles away your freedoms by making little simple, well, we'll help you with this, we'll help you with that. And then before you know it, you're addicted to the government's help. And that's just frightening to me in a way. Because, can you think of one thing that the government has improved when they help? Look at the post office. We get our mail pretty regularly. Every once in a while there's a little bit of an issue in that. But the postal system is losing billions and billions of dollars every year, because there's no incentive to be efficient like with the private company, because they just print more money and get more. Who can lose $20 billion or whatever it is every year and still be in business? But they just ask for more money. And kind of what it comes down to with all of these federal government programs is waste, fraud, abuse, and it's all fueled by corruption, right? Waste, fraud, abuse, and corruption. You older folks, I'm sure, know about Amtrak. If you're younger, you may not even know what Amtrak is, but it's a passenger rail service that the government took over and operates. And I mean, because you probably don't even know about it, that's how well it's run today. And I remember back in I'm going to say the mid 70s, maybe 75, 76, somewhere in there, 77, maybe that, but somewhere right in the mid 70s, I rode an Amtrak train my mom drove me into Chicago, and I got on the Amtrak train in Chicago and rode it out to New Mexico as a teenager. And it was a fun trip. Me and a bunch of my friends, we rode out there. Boy Scouts. It was the Boy Scout trip. And we went to Philmont Scout Ranch out there. I don't know if they even still open. I don't know. But, we rode the Amtrak train from Chicago out to New Mexico. And today, I mean, it's a shell of what it originally was. And of course, the post office I just mentioned, and the SNAP program, the government holding your hand and helping you out. And it's just, that look at what they've done to healthcare when they've gotten involved, how messed up healthcare is. And think about that. Imagine if the government completely takes over the healthcare system, like they operate the Postal Service and Amtrak. I mean, imagine, have you ever been to a VA hospital visiting somebody or there as a patient? I mean, look how wonderful the government runs the VA system, right? Not. Imagine if they ran the entire healthcare system, or look at like New York City. One of the things they're talking about is having government-run grocery stores. I mean, how well do you think that's going to work out when the government starts operating grocery stores? I can guarantee you they're not going to be Whole Food, Kroger, Publix, nothing like that. And of course, the private stores will get run out of business because they won't be able to compete with the government-run stores, right? There's no way. So then pretty soon in the cities, if they open the government-run grocery stores, everybody else will leave. And then everybody in the cities, unless you can drive out to the burbs to do your shopping, you're going to be dependent. That government's going to hold your hand across the street with their government-run grocery stores, and then they're not going to let go of you when you get to the other side. And you're going to be fully dependent. And then, what happens when the government shuts down? They're going to just close the stores because they're non-essential? You're going to expect the people to work in the stores without getting a paycheck? And I wonder, are they going to close on all the government holidays like the Postal Service does? The grocery store is going to be closed every Monday holiday and on the weekends and things like that. I remember when I moved up to Maine back in the late 80s, the stores were closed on Sunday up there. I forget what they call it. But for several years, everything was closed on Sundays. So, you had to do all your grocery shopping and get gas in your car and everything, make sure you were ready to go by Sunday. So, that it just seems silly that the federal government should be involved in things. I just don't see it. And, that's with the grocery stores, with health care. I mean, look at your DMVs. Look how wonderful DMVs operate. Yeah, boy, that's fun when you have to go do something for your license, right? I mean, just imagine the government running more and more things, and then what it's going to be like. Air traffic controllers. My opinion, when the shutdown happened, is they should have just closed the airports. They should have just said, hey, we can't pay anybody, so airports are closed. No air traffic controllers. They're all sent home on furlough. No TSA agents to make sure everybody's safe when they get on the plane. Yeah, that's working real well, right? It's just all insanity to me that so many people are willing to give up their freedoms so that they get their sandwich, and because people want a handout because they think they deserve it. People deserve to have food. People deserve to have a place to live, and we can't afford to buy a house, so we should just be given one. It just blows my mind the way people think today. You know, I grew up where you took care of yourselves. Family took care of family. You know, you helped each other out. The church helped you out, helped you get a leg up and get going on your own. And you know, you'd get a job or start a business or whatever. And people wanted to be free. People wanted to be independent and self-sufficient and, you know, taking care of themselves. And it's frightening to me how many people today are willing to give up their freedoms so that they'll have a roof over their head and food on the table and medical care and all of that at no cost. They just, you know, they're just willing to give it all up for that. And that just blows my mind, because, you know, you should have to work for what you need and what you want. And if you can't afford a big house, you buy a smaller house. If you can't afford to live in a particular city because the cost of living is so high, you move somewhere else where that you can't afford to live. One of my relatives used to always say, "You're not a tree. You can move, right?" I mean, people are moving from California to the southeast, to Alabama and Tennessee, and, you know, places like that. It's just, I just don't get it. I'm really confused by it all. So I hope it makes sense to you. I hope you're on the same page as I am. You know, it's all about, you know, having your freedom rather than having free sandwiches, right?